Hello and welcome to our new show here at Inside Brickball, BUCS Weekend Kickoff. This is our new show dedicated to the previews for the upcoming week in BUCS American football. This week I was joined by QB for the NTU Renegades, Ian Atkisson, and he gave us his thoughts into this week's fixtures as well as the NTU Renegades season so far. Enjoy. So Ian, we'll speak a bit about you first. So how did you kind of get into British American football? I think people can tell by your accent you're not from Britain. So how did you first find out about the Britball?
Yeah, originally from South Dakota State University. Study abroad program took me to Bradford, of all places to go here in England. Found out about the place here. University of Bradford Bears, rest in peace, beautiful team. But yeah, ever since there, fell in love with the whole culture here. Growing community, definitely. Wanted to play at a division a little bit higher than Division 2, where it's taken a little bit more seriously. And yeah, I've been enjoying it. Nottingham Trent.
And you say you joined Nottingham Trent start of this year. How have you found it going from Div 2 to the Prem North?
Big difference is if you hit the gym or not. I think that's a big one. Div 2, you got maybe 5-10 players on the team who have seen the inside of a gym. Here at the Prem, most players, if not all players on the team, have seen the inside of a gym. So I do like that. There's a lot of raw talent, a lot of skills naturally developed on our roster, to be honest. And I feel like big difference between Div 2, Div 1, and the Prem is that natural skill.
Yeah, and you spoke about you like the culture here. What's the difference from the culture from in Britain to over in the States?
The culture. We're talking about American football, or
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Well, there is still a certain amount of casualness that I do like here. You go get drinks after the game. After training, you go and get drinks. In America, you don't really do that so much. After games, after training, you hit the spa or you train more. So it's only American football in the U.S. here. You got a little bit more time to do other things that you'd like to do.
And for yourself this year, Nottingham Trent, I think, have surprised a lot of people. Coming out of the Christmas break, you're 4-1, only lost at the start of the season. You're going on an incredible unbeaten run. Does it feel nice to surprise as many people?
It does feel nice. I think last season, NTU Renegades, they finished 4-4. Started off strong as well, but they finished very poorly. I think they got properly destroyed in the playoffs in the first game. So definitely we had something to prove. The team definitely had a chip on their shoulder going into the season. So being able to come back from an 0-1 record to now 4-1 top of the division, it is very nice. It's nice to prove ourselves, prove the team, prove the league that we are a team to look out for.
Yeah, a team to look out for, definitely. You look at your last two games against Newcastle, 25-0 win, and against Leeds, 35-6 win. Putting up some big scores and make sure that they don't score either.
Of course, yeah. It's taken a few weeks for the offense to click, for sure. We've got a lot of new players on our offense. Though our defense, they've come back completely destroying every offense that they play against. They have been the lifeblood of our team so far.
Yeah, and you said about your offense as well. Is like when I came to watch you at Leeds, you could see that everything was kind of slowly clicking into place, and you got some great wide receivers behind an incredible O-line as well. Does that help you out a lot more? Well, as when I coached you for the Bears, we didn't have any of that. We didn't have. We had about one wide receiver who went for over 50 yards in one game. Your O-line was hit or miss if to show up. Is that like a massive difference as well? The fact that now you've got quality players compared to people who just love the sport as well.
Yeah, no, it is helpful. It's nice having some talent around you. It's definitely a lot more fun. You can definitely expand the playbook a little bit more. Before we had a very small playbook, very basic plays. Now we've gotten a little bit more complicated with our playbook, and it's been a lot more fun doing that.
And do you see that yourself as well, where like you've took on more like a coaching role? Because I know I've seen it before, where when you were at the Bears, you were helping just lads who've never played the sport before come into it and show them, the levels of what's needed at a Div 1 Prem kind of level, rather than at a Div 2. You know, do you still kind of fill that role in at Nottingham Trent? Do you still help with the coaching side of it?
The coaching side of things, a little bit here and there, not so much at Bradford, to be completely honest. I'm more focused on the playbook at the moment than developing players. And those are pretty much the positional coaches. Hence, like at Nottingham Trent, we've got a lot more positional coaches on offense, and they've been doing a great job doing that. So it's been a lot easier for me to focus more on what I need to do and in terms of the entire offense.
And then, you know, looking forward, you don't play this week. However, you're back in action the week after. You can hosting Leeds. You know, there's Leeds in the side who haven't won a game yet this season. Is that kind of a nice little welcome back after Christmas?
Welcome back. I mean, if we didn't have only 3 days in between the 2 games of Newcastle and Leeds, it would be a nice welcome. It would be great to be back, but we do have to keep note of our health on our roster. We have a lot of players who haven't done much over the break in terms of keeping up their physicality. So having 2 games after 2 months away from the sport, not the healthiest. So we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on that.
It's where the similarities kind of start with Bradford, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, yeah, of course. A break is for everyone.
Yeah, but like this show is all about what's happening next week. So next week will be the 25th of January. And we'll look in your division first. So the first game we've got up is Newcastle Raiders, and they host the Northumbria Mustangs. 2 sides you've played against. I know that privately we spoke and you said that you really wanted to beat Northumbria because of how badly they beat us at the Bears, but definitely this one, you've played both sides, you've beaten both sides. You know, how do you see this one working out, and you know, what kind of things can people take from these teams?
Yeah, Newcastle, Northumbria, 2 very good teams in this division, definitely. I think they played before and they won. It was a very close game. I think Northumbria came out on top of that one.
Yeah, 17-14 to Northumbria.
Yeah, very, very close game. I think after us beating Newcastle, they're definitely keeping an eye on Northumbria ahead because they've got a lot to prove. They want to be top of the division, so they are definitely going to bring everything against Northumbria. And I expect a much better game against Northumbria than they did against us, to be completely honest. I think Newcastle definitely has the edge on Northumbria coming into the first week.
And then the next game as well, it's, you know, Warwick are making the trip up to Leeds to face the Griffins. Leeds haven't looked that good this season. You know, not won a game yet. They've conceded 81 points over 4 games, only scored 30. It's not looking good for Leeds, and this is kind of a must-win for them against a Warwick side that last year was in the National Championship at this level. You know, again, yourself, you've played both of these teams. You know what they're like. We've seen you beat Leeds by quite a lot of points, and you've both been on the losing end and the winning end against Warwick. So, same with this one. What can you expect from this game?
Yeah, so obviously Leeds knows where they are in the standings. They're going to hopefully bring everything that they could against this game, right? So they've got Warwick, who has slowed down a little bit. They played us week 1, and then I think injuries kind of started to hold them back a little bit, though I'm sure a lot of those players, the star players that they lost, are going to be back against Leeds, and I think Leeds are going to have a very difficult game against Warwick. I think Warwick is going to make another push to take over us in the lead of the division.
Yeah, and well, luckily enough for yourself, I think you hold the head-to-head over Warwick, which is always a nice thing to have going this late into the season. But for Warwick, you know, the obviously they got loss against you, and then a really tight loss against Newcastle as well. And looking back at all their games, you know, they're not outscoring teams at all. You know, they're keeping it close. They're finding ways to win. And in towards this end of the season, where you've got, I think we've got 5 weeks of football left, 4 weeks of football left. That's when this kind of like grittiness kind of helps them, didn't it? You know, to push forward. Because right now, if the season was to end today, they'd be hosting Cardiff at home in the playoffs. You yourself would be hosting Portsmouth. You know, this like kind of grittiness for you and for Warwick is going to be massive going forward into the next part of the season, isn't it?
Absolutely. We've got, I'd say, the 4 teams in the division Warwick, Northumbria, Newcastle, NTU, we're all still fighting for the top spot. I think the entire division is going to change all the way until the last game of the season. So everyone has a lot to play for right now.
Yeah, and just another note that Leeds do badly need a win today. You guys only play 8 games in the season. Leeds have played half. They've already lost that half. So they'll be looking keenly on that Northumbria Newcastle game because they both sit at 2-2. If Leeds can pull up, I'd say maybe an upset and bring Warwick down to 3-3, it does help their chances of survival. However, it's between them and Exeter really, who look like they are both going to go down. Exeter's are 0-4 as well, and this weekend Exeter host Brunel. Brunel are on fire. The Burners are burning teams quite a lot. 163 points scored, 57 allowed. They're beating SGS, who were in the national final last year, beating tier 1 caliber sides in Cardiff and Portsmouth. So Brunel, like yourselves, are real contenders for promotion, aren't they?
Brunel, absolutely. They've got some studs on their roster. They've got great coaches. They've deserved to be up in the national prem, definitely.
And then the other game in the Prem South, Cardiff host Portsmouth in a game that to many might not mean a lot. However, if Portsmouth can get a win after they've looked shaky from last year, it really does help their chances of survival. They'll go 2-4. Exeter, then that's going to start having to panic because once Portsmouth, you saw it last year, once they can get on a good run, they can really, they can run with it. And yeah, so the Prem North South's definitely going to be an interesting one all the way to the end, where you've got 3 or 4 big hitters, Nottingham Trent, Brunel, SGS, and you can add Warwick into the mix as well. But definitely anyone from the other 3 Prem North sides who've all got a win are definitely in a chance to be in the National Vase final come March time, aren't they? So then, if we have a look into Tier 1, we're just going to pick about maybe 3 or 4 games per one. Ian has said to me his knowledge isn't the best for these kind of things. It's not teams he's played against. But
yep.
One I'll just pick up out from Scotland. Glasgow Tigers host Edinburgh Napier. That's a big game in that division. Edinburgh Napier 5-0 look like the class of Tier 1. They host Glasgow 3-1-1. Glasgow, if they've got any kind of hope to win the division, need to beat Edinburgh Napier. I don't think Edinburgh Napier have lost their regular season game in at least 2 seasons. So it's definitely going to be a big one for Glasgow if they can get a win here.
They played a promotion game last year against Northumbria, I think, right?
Yeah, and Northumbria came away with the win there to get promoted. But Edinburgh Napier, definitely, you look at what they're doing, not just in BUCS, but in U19s and U16s game as well. It looks very promising for Edinburgh. But definitely this game here can all but cement their status in the playoffs. I think, they'll have to win the next game after this, but definitely the last time out, let's have a look when I can. It was I don't think they've played yet, which is even better. I think the Scottish division is a bit weird with how many times people play each other, and Aberdeen doesn't really exist. They haven't played a game at all, and they're 0-5, which is remarkable. But definitely, this game's going to be big for both sides, especially for Edinburgh Napier if they can get the head-to-head win over Glasgow. If we come a little bit further south into England, it's going to be really interesting to see the Lancashire Man Met game. Lancashire 5-0, Man Met 2-3. Man Met potentially looking for that playoff 7 to 9 seed kind of spot. They're currently the 9th seed. They need to be the 8th to get into the playoff and hope that Stirling in Scotland don't go on a good run towards the end of the season. But Lancashire look to their domination. Not conceded a point so far this season. Lancashire, for most people, are going to be the heavy favourites in this game, and they have every right to be. Another one in that division is Manchester Edge Hill. It looks like the days are numbered for Edge Hill in Tier 1, and they'll be going back down to Tier 2. 0-4, only scored 6 points so far this season, coming against the Manchester side that are looking to keep up with Lancashire, so definitely going to be a tough one for that. And then possibly the best game in the Tier 1 North this week, Sheffield Hallam Nottingham Green. It's a game I'm hoping to be in attendance for. You got Sheffield Hallam, who since their loss their first game, when they lost the first game to Nottingham Green, have been unbeaten. Nottingham Green are unbeaten, 5-0. Sheffield Hallam sit 3-1, third in the division. Obviously played less games than Sheffield, but definitely the Nottingham Green are again looking like the class of this division. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these two teams match up. It's always a feisty affair. There's always fights. They always nick coaches from one another and players and all sorts. So this one at Sheffield Hallam is set up to be a really interesting and feisty affair. So yeah, it'll be really good to see that and see if we can get a good game of football in. And then if we look to the south, we've got Bournemouth versus Plymouth. This again is quite interesting. Plymouth again look like they are on the way out of Tier 1. Bournemouth, however, after their administration worries last year, and they were deducted 7 points, they now sit 6-0 with only 5 points, second in the division. There's a chance that they can go unbeaten for the rest of the year and still not make the playoffs, which is incredible. You look at the likes of who they got to play, Bath and Bristol. Bristol are still looking good, 4-2, only lost to Bournemouth. Bath need to try and win out to see their spot. And if they do win out, then they'll end in the first. Bournemouth will get knocked out. It's crazy in the southwest. But it's even crazier in the southern. This week, we were supposed to get today Oxford versus Birmingham. That game was called off this morning. But this week coming up, East Anglia will host Birmingham. And I think we spoke about a lot on our other podcast that Birmingham could now see themselves stuck in Tier 1. And a side that have won national championships, a side that are in Prem football every single year, are now going to be stuck. East Anglia could see this as a win to hopefully boost their chances of survival. They're currently in that bottom spot. Them and Oxford are going to be battling it out now for the rest of the season to see who goes down. And it's going to be interesting to see that one. But Birmingham need a win here to kind of boost their own chances of getting into the playoffs and seeing what they can do against Hertfordshire and Oxford Brooks, who look incredible so far this year. So yeah, that's going to be a tough one for both sides. And then we've got Kingston, King's College in the southeast. King's College need to carry on their good run. They're unbeaten, but 3-0-1. They've drawn a game. Kingston College 1-4. I think now, towards the end of the season, I don't know about you, Ian, but you're going to see a lot more sides where the sides who are vying for promotion are going to keep going, and the sides who are relegation are going to try and put up a fight, but at some point, the fight becomes too much, doesn't it? It's too high of a mountain to climb. So definitely, I think in your division, you look at Leeds, for example, if they lose this week, it's going to be maybe too big of a mountain to climb in it.
Absolutely.
So then if we look to Tier 2, and I think this is, I've said it a lot, the greatest division in football, and I'm sure you can agree.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
the best American football comes from this division.
Exactly. We'll just speak about the Northeast as one that we know already. So that's Sunderland, Hull, York, and York St John. Did you at the start of the season see Sunderland being as good as what they have been this year?
To be honest, yes. I was expecting them to be the top of the division. When we played them a couple of years ago, it was evident that they kind of flipped a switch, and they're definitely going to be playing for promotion. I think with Hull and the rest of the division, when you look at their skill level, Sunderland absolutely has the opportunity to take division and promotion.
And I think it's something that people on the outside speak quite a lot of, is when they get scholars like yourself, for example. You'd be counted as a scholar. Sunderland have got that. You remember they had the running back who we played against when we were at Bradford together. Back, he came back for this year. They've got another one I can't remember the name of, but definitely when you see that and what they're able to do. I mean, they've only played 2 games, but in them 2 games they've scored 58 points, conceded 14, and then 12 of them 14 was to York in a 12-12 draw, which is mental. But one team I think that we might both worry about is York St John. You know the head coach and the DC. I know the head coach and the DC. You know, for yourself, you know, what kind of things do you take away from that team when they're 0-2? They haven't scored any points, conceded 44. I think they come back in 2 weeks' time when they face York, York will be looking to try and go up for promotion. Do you see it as worrying signs for York St. John?
Right. So that takes me back to when Bradford started the season 0-3. We had a first game losing to York 14-15. Then we got blown out 2 games in a row against Northumbria. We came back and we won 56-0 against York St. John. So with the same coaching staff and the same mentality, I expect them to come out firing and potentially defeating York.
Do you see Hoodball working at York St. John?
Hoodball, I don't know if they've got that mentality. That's only in Bradford.
And then, unfortunately, in that division this week, we haven't got any games, but we have got Salford met their return again. They're completely new to the sport, which is great to see. They're 1-1. Last time out, got blown out by Lancaster. Wasn't a great showing. Was 38-0 to Lancaster. But they face a Staffordshire side now who I think they'd highlight as a win, which it could be for Salford. It's going to be a tight game to see what both sides are like. I think a lot of good stuff are coming out for Salford Storm at the minute. You've got a lot of players who are looking towards adult ball and where they can go. So definitely, it's going to be interesting to see that. I think Staffordshire could cause them some problems. They're 0-1 at the minute. They've only played 1 game. They didn't score any points in that game, but they've had a massive break, a lot of time to work on what didn't work. So it's going to be really good to see, more Tier 2 football. One game I did highlight from this as a whole is AIU versus Coventry. Now, before the break, I got really angry at AIU because we had and if you don't know, we have a last man standing. I think there's only 5 people left. I was the 6th because AIU lost to De Montfort, who, could barely score, could barely do anything, and somehow beat the number 1 in that division, AIU. They faced Coventry. Now, I think 3 or 4 years ago, Coventry was a Prem side, and they've just slowly gone down to the bottom. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Coventry, played 2 games, won 1, lost 1, if they can take it to AIU, because AIU, again, are one of them teams that like to keep it tight between the two. It's going to be great to see what happens that weekend, because it's going to either show that AIU have the making to be a Tier 1/playoff team, or if their good form at the start of the season was just, they just came out the traps flying and everyone else was struggling. And if we look to the South, again, I'm going to say this, I'll say this, I don't know much about the South. We have got confirmation that 1 game has already been called off this week, and that's, I'm going to butcher this, Aberystwyth against the UWE Bullets 2 has been called off due to unforeseen circumstances. I'm sure we'll get the reason in due course, and we'll let you know when that is. But we've got Surrey versus Sussex in the Tier 2 Southern, and that's 2nd place Surrey, 3rd place Sussex. The one thing that's hard for these Tier 2 is, 1, they don't play enough games, and 2, they haven't played any games. The most games that someone's played is 4, and a lot of these teams have played twice. They're playing different sides. But definitely in this, at the minute, in the Southern, you've got Reading and Surrey at the top, Sussex and Royal Holloway in the middle, 1-1, and then Solent and Chichester both without a win. And Chichester plays Surrey, so you could see, Surrey coming out with a win there, and you got Sussex playing Solent. Solent, they're winless. They're going to have to try and find a fight. Both sides are, because you don't want to, especially when you're in Tier 2, you don't want to really go the entire season without a win, do you? At that level, it is kind of more social football, isn't it? It's more, you're doing it with your group of mates, and there's nothing worse than going out into a field every week and getting beaten. So it's going to be interesting, definitely. And then
nice plan after them.
Exactly. Well, you can now in this country, which is always good, isn't it? Yeah. And then once this is the last division. There's not that many games this week, unfortunately. It's the Southeastern. Imperial versus City St. George. City St. George last year had a really weird thing where they played half of the games but only played half of the games. It was really weird. Half the game stopped at half time. Didn't know what was going on. And same again this year. They're 1-1 against Imperial, who are 3-0. Imperial look to be, that next level up in the Southeastern. And right now, they're up there with Swansea and Reading, who are also unbeaten, and they'll look to go into Tier 1. This promotion is very different to what we see in Tier 1. Every top side in this one will get promoted into Tier 1 and split amongst the divisions up there. So yeah, definitely for the playoffs, it makes it interesting to see where they'll get seeded. But I think if they can get a win here against the City St George side, who have conceded 39 points, it's going to be really, really interesting to see, if Imperial can come out of the winter break and really flex the muscles. Okay, so that is all of the that's all the fixtures for this week. So Ian, before we go, just a couple more questions to yourself. One thing I hope you're keeping up on is the Premier National. What a division that you might be playing in next year. If obviously with NTU, if they get promoted and there's a promotion relegation game, what do you think of the Prem National? Do you think that's a great idea? And who do you think is going to win it?
Yeah, I think it was a great decision to create the Prem National division. There are a couple of teams that are struggling. It's evident in that there are naturally going to be a couple of teams that aren't to par with the top 3 teams currently. So that is a little bit unfair for those 2 teams. They should be playing the Prem, arguably, if in Division 1. So it is unfortunate for them, but it is fortunate for the 10 teams in the Prem. We don't have to face UE or Nottingham. However, the top teams currently, Brunel and ourselves, NTU, I think if we do get promoted into National Prem, we would definitely be able to do some damage against Durham and maybe even Nottingham. So we do have a game against them, I think February. I think maybe it's March. I don't remember the exact date, but we're definitely looking forward to that game.
Yeah, and you said there, do you see that like Nottingham, and UWE now both have 2 teams? That's a massive positive, isn't it? If to see American football in Britain to have 2 teams both of 50+ players, it's massive, isn't it? It's definitely good for the sport. Like you said, you're going to play Nottingham if that's the greens or the gold or a mix of both. It's definitely going to be interesting to see kind of where you are, isn't it? Where do you guys stand in terms of the Prem National?
Where do we stand in the Prem National? So like I said one more time.
No, but yeah, definitely. And this year, can you see yourselves going all the way? Can you see yourselves going to the final and winning and going into that playoff promotion game?
Oh, absolutely. We would definitely play in the promotion game. Would there be a difference of Prem North and the Prem South? We'd play each other and that would decide who gets promoted? Is that how that works?
So the way it goes is you guys, so the top 4 teams from your division, the top 4 teams from the Prem South, all get put into a quarterfinals. So right now it'd be like if the season ended today, it'd be you against Portsmouth, Warwick against Cardiff, Brunel against Newcastle, SGS against Northumbria, and then from there it basically just goes bit by bit. So there's on one side of the bracket it'd be Nottingham, Trent, Portsmouth, and Warwick, Cardiff. So the winner of them 2 games would play each other and then go into the final. So it could be a North-North final, it could be a South-South final. It all depends on seedings and groupings and where everything can go. And then that's played on Touchdown Tuesday at BUCS Big Wednesday. BUCS Big Wednesday, but played on a Tuesday. It's really strange, but definitely this playoff kind of format was the old way it did in the Prem North South before we had the national. So yeah, and then obviously last year, unfortunately, we didn't get a playoff game, a play-in playoff game because of SGS deciding not to play it. So this year it's going to be really good to see if we actually do get that game and to see whether it's going to be Leeds Beckett or Loughborough, because either side can both be in that game. But yeah, definitely, first week back after Christmas, it looks like it's going to be a really entertaining week and a really great week of football. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks Ian for joining me, and hopefully next week we'll get a different guest on and we can talk more football then. But no, thanks for joining us and see you next time.